And yes, we will be recording this Zoom for the purpose of sharing out with everyone later as well. So give me a little time to send that to everybody, but that is why we are recording this afternoon. So welcome. My name is Michael Tim. I am the Milwaukee Water Stories Program Manager for the nonprofit Reflow, and we're really excited to be in collaboration with the online publication Urban Milwaukee to do hopefully some amazing water storytelling for public audiences this year with the support of NOAA and Wisconsin Coastal Management Program, who are providing an awesome grant to support this activity. If everyone could mute for the time being, and then I'll invite some folks who are on the project team to unmute as we go. My name again is Michael Tim. We have Sydney with us, who is an illustrator, Kareem, who is a talented videographer with Reflow, and then Jeremy, Jeremy with Urban Milwaukee will be joining us soon as well. He is the editor of Urban Milwaukee, which is an online publication serving the Milwaukee area with free access. What are we looking to do with this effort? Think National Geographic style reporting as the ideal, kind of what we're aiming for, but focus on Milwaukee water stories. So that could be any number of topics or threads, but being able to explore them a little bit more deeply and then engage the public and different partners around those topics. So it's hopefully going above and beyond press releases or news items or calendar notes, which are also really valuable to share through this process because we've got a lot of awesome people coming together. But I want to kind of set the table that what we're aiming for is something that's a little bit deeper and hopefully has an enduring impact and also is very visually focused. My background, I spent a number of years as a local journalist in Milwaukee. One of the things I got to do there was edit a water science column with collaboration within the Great Lakes Water Institute that kind of set my interest. I ended up earning a master's degree from UWM in freshwater science and technology. And with that background, started doing work with the nonprofit Reflow, and really privileged to be able to do this work. Get to do writing, interview community members, as well as coordinate stories and data through an interactive resource called the Milwaukee Community Map. So I have a water science background, have a journalism background, and have been working with Reflow for a number of years now to kind of support these community projects. Sid, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and just sharing a little bit about yourself. One of the things we're excited about through this project is the ability not only to use the written word, but to do some wonderful illustrations to power that story to different audiences. So Sid, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone, I'm Sydney. I'm super excited to be a part of the project team. I've worked in graphic design and illustration since about 2014. The drawing on the slide here is actually from a digital comic I've been trying to work on in earnest since March. Michael gave me a copy of Miranda and the Asphalt Monster, which is kind of a predecessor Water Stories comic to what I'll be doing. And I just knew I wanted to be involved immediately. So yeah, exciting stuff. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Sydney, and I really appreciate where this could lead, because I'm excited about the ability to use art and illustration to tell these stories in really awesome ways.
Definitely.
Part of the project also involves video storytelling, because we know a lot of people interact with video online. And Kareem, if you are, I saw you on there earlier, if you would unmute and just introduce yourself about some of the video work that you've been able to do for Reflow over the years.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Kareem, digital media specialist with Reflow. Been with Reflow for about 3 years now, and mainly my job has been, documenting schoolyard projects, internships, and various other things. I've started to turn those things into, social media content for Reflow and other content, and it's not hard to show the impact when you have these huge changes going on. So yeah, excited to be a part of this and continue to share our green city.
Thank you, Kareem. And Kareem is also a bit younger than I am, so it's great to have a different perspective in terms of how people are accessing media. which as I get older is no longer exactly native in all the ways. So that's awesome to have that counterbalance. I'm not sure if Jeremy is joined us by phone or not, because he again was going to be running late. Jeremy, if you're there, if you want to unmute. Otherwise, I'll speak for Jeremy, and then he'll join us later and can introduce himself. Jeremy is the editor and writer for Urban Milwaukee, and they do, in my view, a lot of great work in getting the word out about stuff happening around the city. And so I'm really thrilled that Urban Milwaukee has agreed to be the first place where these stories will be published. And then the intention is not only can they be shared from when they are published through Urban Milwaukee, but they can be, with permission, freely republished or used in other contexts. So that's something that we're looking to have these stories kind of add value to the community, not just when they're published, but over time as well. So what are the outputs expected from this project? 12 stories of feature length that, again, think National Geographic for what we're aspiring to, but focused on Milwaukee. 4 illustrated stories. The exact form those are going to take and how they're going to integrate with the rest is something that we'll be figuring out, but that's really exciting, and it's meant to be aimed at younger audiences. 4 videos and then 4 maps, all of which support the storytelling over the course of the next year. If you're interested in this and can continue to be excited and interested, and as new story ideas develop and as things change, if you would save the date for these future roundtables that we're doing approximately quarterly to reconvene those who are interested in touching base on drafts of the illustrated stories, as well as continuing to keep the pulse on different story ideas. And I see Tina is raised her hand, but if you could hang on until a little bit longer, Tina, I will follow up with you, because I recognize that you're at school until 3:30 on those days, but would still love for you to participate. What's the overall goal of this effort? Just read the first line. To increase awareness, understanding, and interest in Milwaukee water stories. That's kind of what we're interested in. So that's the goal. Increase awareness, understanding, and interest. Because this is being exposed through a public exposure through Urban Milwaukee, we feel like there's a different audience that can be reached than some of the individual nonprofits and other partners who are on the call are able to reach on their own. So kind of excited about that. Coastal Management is the funding entity for this project over the course of the next year. We're really excited about that. And now I will pivot to the person behind the scenes, Justin, who's also part of the project team and executive director of Reflow. Justin, if you would like to unmute and also set the stage a bit, I'd appreciate that.
So Justin Haggerty, executive director, environmental engineer. From the nonprofits perspective, I'm excited about this because on the nonprofit side, we get involved with a lot of different projects, a lot of water-based projects. And Michael and I were kind of chatting about what this resource, this opportunity could mean from the nonprofit perspective and those on the ground that are doing good things across the region. And I think from that perspective, I would just kind of like underscore that this is an opportunity for us to share out good things that are happening, things that might not go unnoticed, but may have significant impacts. The other ones are, larger initiatives that may not quite fit a press release, or maybe the press release are few and far between. And so this is a significant resource, kind of a new one that we haven't all had access to. And so we're trying to kind of evolve it. I think this is the first time that we're trying something like this. And then what Michael and I have been talking about is getting some feedback today and then trying to stitch that together over the coming year-ish, so we can compile a larger resource from what comes out of these discussions as well. But today we are recording this session. At the end of the session today, we'll be sending out a poll via Zoom as well. So as we hear people's pitches today, please kind of reflect if you would like to hear more about that pitch that comes out of it, because that's just helpful feedback to hear how folks, if the stories that are being shared are things that people would want to hear more about. Thanks, Michael.
Cool. Thank you, Justin, and thank you also for helping to manage the Zoom this afternoon. It's going to be pretty cool. So how is this going to work? Received a number of pre-pitches through the form that went out earlier. So those folks will be on the list to go first. All of the presenters who have pitched will have 2 minutes to just share on Zoom the story idea and what it's all about. Then we'll have up to 2 minutes for anyone on our team to kind of ask any follow-up questions just to learn a little bit more, and then open it up to all of the folks on the Zoom to chime in. We'll try to do that through the hand raise feature to minimize over talking if possible. For adding on like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that was happening. I'd love to do this with you, or this is what's happening, just to see where that goes. So that is the way we're going to iterate these pitches. And first, we're going to have Justin do a model one of that real kind of simply so that we can see what that would look like before we dive in. And then things to keep in mind over the course of this activity is like, when is the story going to be most appropriate to have some kind of coverage or exposure? How does this story connect with coastal resources? It doesn't necessarily have to be right on the coast to have a coastal connection, but it's important that there's a coastal connection to these stories in terms of what we're looking at. And then what's the community impact? Who is this resonating with, and or who is this engaging? Is it different varieties of people in different areas and different communities? That has an advantage because then you're expanding the audience and the reach of this work. So with that, I just want to respect that Tina, you'd raise your hand earlier. Tina, do you have a question? Would you like to unmute and ask a question, or are we good?
It was the same, like the school goes till 3:30, so I wouldn't be able to make any of those meetings. So yeah, that was it. Sorry.
Cool. No worries. Cool. So with that, I am going to go ahead and stop the share. And if there are no other burning questions from the participants, and if Jeremy, unless Jeremy is on the phone call, I'm going to go ahead and let's do a mock session. So Justin, we've got a timer, and you are pitching your example story to this group, and I'm listening.
All right. Thank you for that. So just folks, I just started the timer. So up at the top right, you'll see a 2-minute timer. The rules for this activity that we're going to be doing is I get 2 minutes to kind of pitch to everyone on the call the story. And the story I'm going to be doing, I'm opting to provide some visuals as well. We don't have to do the visuals, but in this case, I would like to just talk about schoolyard redevelopment projects. It's part of the Green and Healthy Schools initiative in the region. And these projects their connection to the coastal connection is that we're managing lots of water, managing lots of stormwater, and there's lots of projects. Each year there are 5 Milwaukee Public School projects. I'm just going to kind of click through this website, and I'm looking at my time. I've got about a minute left on my pitch. But here's an example of one school that's currently raising funds. It looks like a lot of asphalt. And then if you kind of slide to the right, through lots of community connections and discussions and lots of fundraising, there's lots of improvements that are in the pipeline for this one school. And again, there are 5 schools that go through this effort every year. About 25% of Milwaukee Public Schools have voluntarily enrolled in this program. There are about 150 Milwaukee Public Schools. So the kind of the big prompts of how is this connected to coastal story. One is through stormwater management, and there's millions of gallons being captured. And then also we're trying to draw in federal and regional funding to support these initiatives. And then how is this connected to the community is that these projects are oftentimes located in residential neighborhoods. There's lots of connections to families, children, educators, et cetera, and the folks that use the space after school hours as well. So there's my pitch. I'm landing it right here at 6 seconds left, and I'll stop sharing the screen.
Very cool. Both very, very informative, and also a good illustration of the timer. So now if we want to hit the timer for the question period or thereabouts, I guess I would be interested in the question of like the timing. So like that's a really big project. And I think one of the things that's sort of interesting from the water perspective is you may not see the water end of it, even though it's a schoolyard, it's in the middle of the city, but it does have that water connection. Can you speak more to the intentionality of that, and also to like the timing, like what scale of story be appropriate for this very large effort in your view?
Yep. The schoolyard redevelopment projects, it takes about 3 years to go from ideation through fundraising to construction. And so every year there's 5 schools that are at one of those phases of development. So from a timing perspective, you could pick this story up at any point and there'd be all sorts of things to talk about. In terms of on the ground action, there are 5 projects under construction at the moment, and they'll be wrapped up in the next couple of months. So October would be ideal in any given year because that's when all of the construction activities are intended to be wrapped up by then, and we would have finished pictures more or less to show off. And then also in relation to the climate and equity plan supported by Eric and the Environmental Collaboration Office that was recently passed, and maybe this is blending into potential eco story, but that was a timely component that was supported to increase the amount of green healthy school projects completed each year too.
Cool. Sydney, Kareem, or Jeremy's jumped on. Any questions for Justin?
No, I think that was pretty clear. Good job, Justin.
So then we would pivot in the model to the open conversation. So then 2 minutes for anyone who wants to chime in. And this might be a little messy if there's a lot of excitement, but let's just try it and go. Any Zoom hand raise? And Kohler, does this need to be a project that has already started or a new potential project? I think that's directed to like with respect to pitching. I think we're in this call today to try to get a drift on like what's coming in the pipeline. So it doesn't have to be something that's happening right now to be of interest. So if something is happening next year, it would be great to know that something is happening next year. I see Tracy has her hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, already I'm feeling there's going to be maybe some opportunity for a collaboration of stories and stories that can connect and kind of branch off of one another. So I think that'll be something to keep in mind throughout hearing everyone's pitches. I'm excited.
Cool. And if we need to go to extra time in the community portion, I think that's totally cool because that's why we're bringing people together. Any other questions on process? Hearing none. The first person who pre-pitched that I have on my list was Aaron Owens at Sewer Pack. Aaron, are you on the call? You want to unmute, and if you want to share, we're going to go ahead and get your clock going. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I don't have a visual, but like Michael said, I'm Aaron Owens. I'm a planner for the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, otherwise known as Sewer Pack. And we serve the 7-county region of Southeastern Wisconsin, including Milwaukee, Waukesha, Washington, Ozaukee, Walworth, Racine, and Kenosha counties. And so as an organization, we assist local units of government and urban planning studies on issues that may extend spatially beyond the boundaries of a single municipality. So things like land use planning, transportation planning, and environmental planning. And so Sewer Pack is currently conducting a comprehensive regional chloride impact study for our region. And this is a multi-year study that began back in 2017 and is ongoing still. The study grew out of growing concerns that there's environmental impacts of chloride salts, particularly on the surface water and groundwater resources of the region. And so as a society, we obviously rely on chloride salts, and it serves an important role to keep our roads and parking lots and sidewalks safe from ice and snow in the winter. We also use it for water softening, and chloride's also in some agricultural fertilizers. But the impacts of chloride salts come with a heavy price. And so in our region and around the US, chloride concentrations in our streams, lakes, and groundwaters are rising rapidly. And once chloride enters the waterway, it's virtually impossible to remove. So that means it's there forever and it continues to build up over time. And chloride pollution can have negative impacts on obviously on wildlife, on roads and automobiles, on other infrastructure such as water infrastructure. And so our story would be to pitch not necessarily solely about Sewer Pack's study, because there's also other groups out there doing great work providing outreach and education on the subject. But hopefully will be the first goal of an urban Milwaukee story would be to raise awareness of the readers on the problem of chloride pollution, The study or the story could hopefully provide a quick summary on the environmental impacts that chloride pollution has. And then hopefully the story could also shine a light on the objectives of SewerPEC's chloride impact study, the deliverables and the reports that are expected to come from the study, and the progress that's been made to this point in the study. So that's my brief Cliff Notes, 2 minute, maybe 2 minute
Cool.
plus
Thank you.
pitch.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. And some on the call may be aware of this issue and some may not. So I think that's great. And I think there is opportunity for more awareness. Can you speak to the timing of when these reports are going to be issued, or if there's any draft reports that could be shared at a certain time? Because I
Sure.
would be interested in that.
Yeah, so the plan is to have, there are going to be 8 technical reports that are going to be published. And then those technical reports will be aimed at more of a technical audience, covering an array of chloride impacts and chloride related subjects. And then it's going to be wrapped up by a planning report that's kind of, it's going to be the overarching report that draws all those topics together. And as well, it's going to look at projected future conditions and provide recommendations to reduce the impacts of chloride. The timetable we are putting, one of the technical reports is already on our website in draft form. We just presented that to our technical advisory committee. Another report is close to being finished, probably will be finished by the end of the year. But overall, the study is likely to take until maybe 2025 for full completion.
Okay. Cool. Other questions from the project team? Let's pivot to other notes from anyone who's in attendance, questions, observations, overlaps.
I'm curious to learn a bit about what current efforts are there to remove chlorides from local waterways?
Well, it's not necessarily to remove chloride from local waterways, but it's to reduce the amount of chloride getting to local waterways. So we've made some great strides in terms of like municipalities with their use of road salt. They've really cut back on road salt usage and switched to some state-of-the-art technologies like brining, pre-treatment of roads and things like that have made a big impact. But a lot of the private salting, some of the contractors doing parking lots and homeowners with their sidewalks and driveways, we still have ways to go there.
Marina's raised her hand. Marina?
Yeah, so just my understanding of some of these stories, if you're saying National Geographic, right? Part of that is the visual component of the story. So I'm wondering, Aaron, like, is there something that you see that could be, you know, graphically interesting, some infographics, or like what kind of, like, I don't know, does that make sense? What kind of visual would make sense to go with it?
That's something I'd have to think a little bit more on. We obviously have a ton of figures, a ton of maps that are going to be going along with these reports. So building off of some of those would obviously be something we could work on.
And Eric shared in the chat SaltWise, which is a resource. That's a great question, Marina, about the visuals. And my brain goes to seeing all the salt piles down by the port and making the connection between this is an input that we're choosing to use, and how to communicate that to people is maybe something that the visuals can help with.
Absolutely. We also have a plethora of photos of parking lots that are, you know, white with salt throughout the winter. So we have a lot of examples of what not to do, but we could also include some examples of, you know, best approaches. You know, they say about a coffee cup of salt is the amount that you need to properly, you know, salt a 10 sidewalk squares in a city.
What about, I guess, the impact too of the pollution? Like, is there, being not familiar with, what is the result of that specific type of pollution in the water?
Yeah, so
So-
there's a lot of different impacts. There's toxic levels of chloride that can alter reproduction of fish and aquatic organisms. High enough levels can actually be deadly for fish, aquatic organisms, and plants.
Got it. So it can lead to die-offs and things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, got it.
There's
Thank
also
you.
then, the impacts to our infrastructure, impacts to our cars, corrosion of car bodies, impacts to water related infrastructure. So chloride salts can tend to leach out heavy metals such as lead and copper that are found in our water service lines or our home plumbing. So that's kind of a hidden issue with chloride pollution as well.
And I want to be respectful of process and be ready to pivot. I have Tracy next. Thank you, Aaron. The one other note I'll offer there, and I would love to follow up with you on this at the appropriate time. So look for an email. Is there's a lot of complicated policy recommendations that may emerge as well. And that
Absolutely.
may be a meaningful use of effort to try to convey that to people, because that can get in the weeds very easily.
Yeah, and one of our technical reports is also going to be the legal and policy considerations for chloride management. So,
and that will be, is that the one that'll be out end of this year, or?
That will likely be end of this year, potentially early next year. We'll be bringing that to the technical advisory committee in draft form, and then hopefully getting it published.
Cool. The next person on my, thank you, Aaron. Next person on my list I have is Tracy from Artworks. And Tracy, you are up. We'll go ahead and get your clock going.
Okay, great, thanks. I have a little bit of a recycled visual I can share with the proposal for this project. So hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lamenzo. I'm the program manager with Artworks for Milwaukee. And we offer paid internships for high school students locally in the Milwaukee area, and really focus on providing career skills through arts internships. So one of our programs is an environmental arts internship. And this October, we will be starting the third round of programming, and that will go from October 2023 through September 2024. So one project that we are proposing for this year that I think would make a cool water story is the interns would be partnering with MMSD, the Northwest Side CDC, and Samuel Clemens Elementary School, which is also undergoing the process of becoming a green school, like we heard in the initial pitch example. The project that we are proposing, and it kind of happens throughout the internship as the interns kind of plan it and work with elementary school students, and it evolves as it happens, is to create storm drain murals. And these are some Southside storm drain mural examples that we did in the past. And they would actually work with the elementary school students at Sam Clemens and the local community to kind of survey, do cleanups around, learn about storm drain awareness and promote storm drain awareness throughout this process. So there's a lot of planning and then a lot of excitement and kind of celebration at the end that the story could follow along. As far as timing goes, the planning would probably start in the winter, like January 2024, and the actual execution and painting or mosaic or whatever they come up with for the storm drain murals would be when the weather cooperates a little bit more, thinking like end of the school year, like May and June. All right, that's my time.
Cool. Thank you very much. And thank you for speaking to the timing there. There could be some awesome visuals involved in that story. And also, I guess my initial question would be curious about like their design process. Can you maybe speak to what that could look like? Is there any storytelling that could occur around like how the young people would be coming up with the ideas for what's going to be represented visually in their community?
Yeah, so it would start likely, it's kind of a fluid process with some of the interns' input, but it would start with them receiving education on storm drain awareness. So potentially like a Jones Island tour or a presentation from MMSD, and then actually going around and for example, the Southside storm drains you saw, they hosted like a community picnic and had community input on the designs. So something along that line this time focused probably more so with the elementary school students, since they would be part of the Sam Clemens elementary school property, but also some community input, especially with the residents that are right across the street from the school.
Cool. Other questions from team members? Also, welcome, Jeremy. Thanks for joining us. I hope Linwood was awesome.
I think this is a great idea. And Tracy, I don't know, do you just work with specific high schools, or like that would be great, like getting that information out? Because I think a lot of times our high school kids don't know what the internships are out there and how to apply. So I think that would be great. And then like what is your, like, if this story did go out, would you have the potential if other like elementary schools or like my school reached out to you, said, hey, do you want to work with us and stuff like that? Would you be able to handle that kind of like impact?
Yeah, so we actually specifically try to get a mix of students from various high schools as much as possible in the Milwaukee area. Right now we have an internship that focuses on graphic design and mental health advocacy. And I think we have students from at least 8 different high schools in that internship. So we try to split them up all over, not specifically MPS, but mostly MPS students is what we end up serving. And then, yes, so our internship programs, the interns only meet 7 hours a week, but for an entire year. And we usually plan 3 major projects throughout that time. So maybe not like an immediate ability to serve all the schools, but we're always open to new partners and working with some new people.
Cool. I see Don has raised his hand. Don, we're in community time now, so Don.
Okay, yeah, Tracy, this would have real world connections too, because storm drains outside of the central city, outside of the combined sewer area, drain directly to waterways. And each year there's an incident of a waterway being polluted by something that somebody poured down a storm drain. And the most recent one is probably still up on the Milwaukee River Keeper website. So yeah, I see, just tremendous community messaging based on something like this too. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Awesome. Anyone else want to chime in? Aaron has raised his hand.
Yeah, I'll just note, Tracy, you probably already know, but there is some adopt your storm drain programs out there in different communities. I know Sweetwater has a program where people can adopt a storm drain to take care of, maintenance and cleaning them out and whatnot. So it might be a good opportunity to team up with some of those folks.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron. Other thoughts on the storm drain painting? I think the visuals would be awesome, and the idea of connecting it directly with kids and then to have that immediate impact makes it have a sort of a general public appeal. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and Tracy, anything else you want to add in 20 seconds?
Quick shameless plug at Black Arts Fest MKE this year on August 5th. Our graphic design interns are actually going to be doing a chalk version of a storm drain mural to bring awareness in the children's area on the Summerfest grounds. So if you find yourself there, stop by.
That was August 5th, you said?
Yep, Saturday, August 5th at Black Arts Fest MKE.
Cool, thank you. No shameless plugs are accepted here. That's all right. Next on my list, I have Anne, with respect to the Clutch Fish Passage, which is hard for me to say. So Anne with Milwaukee Riverkeeper representing the Waterway Restoration Partnership.
Hi, everybody. I think when we took our approach to this, we were kind of focused more on time, like what projects are coming up and what things we could showcase. But having heard your overview, Michael, I might shift our pitch just a little bit and elevate ourselves from just the Clutch Park Fish Passage, which is under construction right now. So the Waterway Restoration Partnership is a group of local and state and federal agencies and organizations that are working together to ensure sort of this generational opportunity we have right now to restore the Milwaukee estuary area of concern to ensure that that's completed. So there are a multitude of projects that are happening to restore the area from dredging to wildlife and habitat restoration projects. This Clutch Park Fish Passage project is intended to help restore native fish populations. And it's been underway, that the planning and the work to make this happen has been underway for quite some time, but we finally hit construction, which is very exciting. And the fish passage should be completed by the end of the year. So it's very timely. I think what we're trying to accomplish is to help people understand the connectivity between some of these different projects and the overall restoration of the area of concern. And I think one of the things that's particularly unique about Milwaukee's take on restoration is the way that we have come together to sort of link arms and ensure that this work is done instead of piecemeal accomplishing projects as individual entities and property owners. By coming together and trying to do this work cohesively, we're also really trying to work on ensuring that the community has a voice in the project and the process, which I think is also really interesting and unique. So yeah, so that's sort of my overall pitch. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very cool. And thank you for representing the Waterway Restoration Partnership and highlighting Clutch. It's a big deal. And I'm really excited about the work that's going on there. So I also feel that there's an opportunity to use the visuals to draw some of that connectivity that you're talking about, and potentially to get better community traction about like, how does this all hang together? Because not everybody's looking at the interactive maps that I am. We have a question. Yeah, we'll share all the contact info. Also, feel free to put stuff in the shared spreadsheet. My question to you, Anne, on this Clutch piece would actually be, do you have contact with any fisher folk? Because one thing that I would love to make this a human story is to connect with people who are fishing, who would really find value from the fish passage happening. And that's something that I would love connections to, if you can speak to it.
Yeah, I mean, we work with a number of fishing guides and fishing groups and organizations, and overwhelmingly the response is very positive from those folks. They're really excited about reestablishing the native fish population. So I mean, we could help connect you if that's like the angle you want to take, for sure.
Other thoughts from the project team? Let's pivot into the community notes. People want to chat about this, feel free to raise your hand. And maybe also, Anne, if you want to drop the Waterway Restoration Partnership link in the chat for those who aren't aware, that's a great place to start to learn about this, because it's such a complex and far-reaching thing, but has very strong coastal and community connections. So I appreciate that. Seeing no other comments, Justin, do you have a comment?
Yeah, and I'm curious, just kind of like the order of magnitude about funding that is being worked on by the partners to kind of support these types of restoration projects.
Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry, what about the funding?
Yeah. So in previous discussions, I've heard about some really great kind of fundraising efforts around the area of concern. It feels pretty transformative on the amount of funds that are being worked on this effort. If you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's an incredible amount of money that's being poured into this right now, and it's probably still only a fraction of what we need to accomplish all of it, which is kind of incredible also. So the EPA is, I guess one new and sort of interesting angle of the funding that I should kind of share is the EPA has sort of taken an environmental justice approach to some of their funding, and they're really putting an emphasis on that. And the Waterway Restoration Partnership was just awarded some of those new funds for environmental justice because of the new direction that the new approach and direction that we've taken to involving the community in this work. So that's kind of interesting, and that's still sort of how that's all going to be distributed throughout the community, and what that exactly looks like is still to be determined, but that's new. But as far as accomplishing the projects, it goes project by project based on funding each specific project. So the dredging right now that's underway on the river is being covered by We Energies. And so that's already been paid for, but each project has a different bill.
Thank you for that.
Cool. I think we need to move on out of the respective process. And I see there's a lot of activity in the chat as well, with some great context and resource. It feels to me also like visualizing the flow of that money could be part of the way we explore the story as well, because it's such a large and comprehensive effort. So I really appreciate that. I'd love to continue to follow up with you, Anne, about this. And it's good to hear the timing on clutches continuing to move forward, because that feels like maybe that's something that we can focus on in this next quarter. I want to pivot to Anne Kohler. You had some ideas, and I also realize your time is tight. So Anne, if you would like to go.
Sure. Hi, I'm another Anne, Anne with an E. My story is really around how do we, I can share a screen, but how do we really look into, we're a water-centric city. We've been named as the freshwater capital of the world by the UN. We have major lake, 5th largest freshwater lake in the world. We have multiple rivers, and we still have a large amount of our residents who don't interact with water. And we know from research that being in, around, or near water helps lower cortisol, helps with mental health. I've been privileged to be a coach of a high school swim team. I've worked with Milwaukee Rec at North Division to help 3rd graders learn water safety. Milwaukee, as it currently stands, has no water safety training. We have tornado safety, we have fire safety, and the relationship with water. What is our relationship with water in a water-centric city, and how do we improve the mental health and wellness of our city using our greatest assets? So I almost want to create a story from a community point of view, and a journalist, like work with a journalist to really dig into that question. If water is at the root of healing, how are we doing in our city, and how are we missing the mark? And what are stories that are bringing it to life, that are doing it, that are working with kids on their relationship with water, on their confidence in water, on mapping out where waterways are, how to be safe in the water. So it's really what is our relationship with water as citizens of a water-centric city?
Cool. Thank you, Anne. So it sounds like the dimensions that you're touching on are varied, but include health and equity and wellness, and sort of a sense of almost spiritual awareness as well, if I understand correctly.
Yep, you got it.
And are you, you said in your email, you suggested that there might be some activity that you're working on heading into next year as well. Did you want to speak about?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, this was a presentation done for the Urban Spaceship Conference, for the Urban Planning Conference. A long-term crazy idea view is could Milwaukee, a water-centric city, freshwater capital of the world, house a state-of-the-art, first of its kind aquatic healing center? So using water as a therapy mechanism, as a way to water birthing center. Is it water massage? Is it warm water therapy, flotation, etc.? So that was kind of my crazy idea, but in the small term of just getting MPS students, MPS 3rd graders in a water safety program where they can start to interact with their own relationship with the water and their confidence, and seeing what that has done for them. We have pictures and illustrations. We have so much data around what they thought when they first started and how they've come out on the other side. And the statistic that is most alarming is that if you don't learn to swim by the age of 9 years old, then you have a 10% chance of ever learning to swim. And if you imagine that into waterways, who's going to water if they don't know how to swim, if there's fear around water? So the relationship with water is really at the root of jobs, of cleanup, of protection. We protect what we care about, and we care about what we love. And so if we have fear or we have unknowns around that, then we'll never protect it. We'll never engage with it.
Thanks, Anne. Want to open it up to the community, but also kind of put in the background the question of like, what's the biggest hurdle to that water safety program being implemented? Because that sounds like that is one of those things that maybe could be a news item of some kind that we could hang some of the this larger story on.
Huge.
And where that is. What's the hurdle right now?
Yeah, so since 2017, Milwaukee Rec has done a water school program. So it's 4 weeks. It's 6 weeks, 4 of the weeks are in the water with multiple elementary schools that they bus to North and South Division. This year we had 4 elementary schools. Dr. Posley visited, and because I'm not a Milwaukee Rec employee, I straight up asked him, in a water-centric city where we have, fire safety and tornado safety, why don't we have water safety for our babies, for our children? And he was like, show me the numbers. What do you need? And I was like, there's 4,000 third graders in Milwaukee. This could go into a learning journey that is partnered with a Kohler or with a business to fund, and it can go right into the PE classes. So this is not a heavy lift, but it's also highly political because the school board would have to decide on it. And then I don't think funding would be a problem, but he was very open to continuing the conversation about that. And I think it's a real miss if a water-centric city doesn't have water safety for its youngest citizens.
Cool. Others who want to comment or ask questions? Good.
I'll comment. I know that as a teacher, and I just brought a bunch of kids to Niagara Falls, and just, them being able to see, and we were able to get them on a boat, but that was one of the biggest issues is like, MPS doesn't approve anything that goes on water or stuff like that, unless you can prove you've got like a registered lifeguard and stuff like that. And I know that one of the trips we wanted to take next year was to Puerto Rico, but right now I don't think that'll get approved because of those concerns about kids not knowing how to swim. And as someone who started swimming when I was like 3, and I've been, it was the biggest shock to me when I came in here to see how many kids didn't know how to swim and how many kids had not even been in the lake or by the lake. And, and it's just, I love water. And so for them to have that pleasure and that feeling, like to be happy to be by the water and not scared, I think that would be amazing. Yeah, I love that.
Amen. Yeah, I coached a high school team, and a third of the high school team were not confident in the water, couldn't swim, hadn't been to the lake. And within 2 weeks, they're swimming competitively against suburban schools. They're realizing how much they love the water and how they come from class, and I tell them, just give it to the water. You're sad, you're depressed, you're full of anxiety, you're angry, you're rageful, give it to the water, and I promise you'll feel better. And the third graders come in scared, and they leave feeling alive. They drew these amazing pictures. They were different kids in the classroom. Their teachers told me, like, they're different on swim days. They're different on days where they know they're going to be there. And we have this natural resource, like, why aren't we using it for our own mental health and wellness? And everyone deserves to have the joy that you have, Tracy.
Thanks, Anne. Really appreciate that. We need to pivot on to the next person. Emily, I know that you didn't pitch this as a story per se, but as an item, but I think it might resonate with Mary if Mary's on the call. Emily suggested a story, or actually just wanted to mention the Sturgeon Fest event. Emily, if you're on the call, if you want to mention that, and then, and or maybe if Mary, if Emily's not on the call, I think I saw Mary earlier on the call. If there was interested from Emily Berth. She says, I do not have a story per se, but want to alert the public about a calendar item. Sturgeon Fest is an annual event where anyone is invited to sponsor the release of a baby sturgeon, a critically endangered and prehistoric species, into the Milwaukee River. And that occurs on September 24th. And the why is it helps to reestablish an endangered species in Milwaukee. And so if anyone wants to jump in on sturgeon, otherwise we'll pass to the next. I know there's a lot of interest in sturgeon on a number of fronts, so definitely mark that on your calendar. Don, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people there's a link to the fish passage with sturgeon, and that sturgeon raised at river edge over the decades are coming back now into the Milwaukee River, and they're being, found in the Milwaukee River. So one of the reasons for that fish passage is to allow a poor swimmer like sturgeon to get around that dam. And so then they can go upstream and find habitat for spawning. So there's a direct link between these projects. So I think she has a great idea.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to chatting with Sydney about how to visualize these things, because I do love the interconnectivity that's happening. And sturgeon is one of those charismatic species that is visually interesting as well and can kind of resonate with folks.
Sure. This is Mary and I am on the call.
Oh, awesome, Mary.
Anyhow,
let's get married 2 minutes, Justin.
Sure. Well, Sturgeon Fest is actually scheduled already. It's going to be done in combination with Harbor Fest on the 24th of September, just as it has been the last couple of days or a couple of years. And this is our 17th year of the project. To date, we've released about 20,000 fingerling sturgeon, and it's true, they're starting to come back. The males are coming back. The females won't come back until we're in year 25 of the project. But anyhow, we're in full swing with more fish again from the Wolf River this spring. Unfortunately, a lot of them are ill this year, so we're not sure if how many we will have to release in the fall, but we are working hard to keep them alive, and do hope to have some available for Sturgeon Fest, just for people to be able to see them anyways. But yeah, so that project, along with the Testing the Waters program, are things that stories that we'd like to pitch, but both of them have been in existence for some time, so I don't know if they're a new story. So perhaps we don't have a new twist on either of them at this point, so I'm not sure if it's something that is worthwhile bringing up for this group.
I think Don's point about clutch is what's new, and I think that's the hook
For sure.
from my perspective. So I would love to continue to talk to you, Mary, and get
Sure.
deeper on the sturgeon.
Sounds good.
Hearing that is a level of connectivity. I'm going to go out of interest of time. I do have a note from Nancy Rattana at Clean Wisconsin. Is anyone else from Clean Wisconsin on the call? If you are, unmute. If not, I'll hold that to the end because we have a bunch of people who are interested in pitching, but I'll just briefly mention that she's Nancy Rattana at Clean Wisconsin in its 10th summer, partnered with MMSD, community organizations, and neighborhood associations to continue to build resiliency by installing free residential green infrastructure practices in the 30th Street Industrial Corridor. I will follow up with Nancy as appropriate, but that was mentioned, but she wasn't able to be on the call. We'll pivot back to Anne, but with your mention of the new Urban Water Trail app, if you'd like to take time for that, Anne. And with Riverkeeper had mentioned, and maybe this ends up being more of a news item.
Hello,
and,
sorry.
oh, there you are.
I'm here.
You
I'm
had
sorry.
submitted
I
the
have
idea of the
I
Urban
have my
Water Trail.
son with me, so I'm just managing things right now.
If you want to talk about the Urban Water Trail app.
Yes. Yeah. So so Milwaukee Riverkeeper helped establish the Milwaukee Urban Water Trail, which is a list of all the accessible places for you to put in and launch your kayak and your boat along the Milwaukee River. And we realized that there was sort of a need to make it even more accessible to folks that might not understand Milwaukee Riverkeepers connection to it because we have a physical map that you can get at a lot of our partner locations, or you can contact us to get the physical map. But that's not always the easiest thing, especially when you're on the river. So we have built a new website that features the map and features a bunch of paddling information, and we're hoping to continue to grow that website, but it's going to be launching this summer. So I think that it might be interesting to do a feature on public access in the Milwaukee River Basin. I think that that could be a really interesting idea, especially as we see kind of a renaissance on the rivers, I think, happening post-pandemic, how people have kind of turned back to our rivers. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that you're bending us away from just about the release, but towards a larger theme. That's something that I would love to think about how to integrate. Other thoughts or notes from the partners on access to our waters? Otherwise, I know that we still have a few moving here and a few that I think people want to chime in on. But any notes? Hearing none, Tina, you are up with respect to Golda Meir Schoolyard and the relationship to water.
Awesome. Let me just share. I just have some pictures to share. So these are just some pictures. Basically with Golda, what I wanted to do is, it kind of ties into a couple stories that we've already heard here today, like Justin's pitch, like we're one of the first or third year of the Sustainable School Initiative, the Green School Initiative. So we are one of the schools. And what I want to do is tell the story of how we're continuing what we've started with that to do outreach to get more people aware of what we're doing and the impact that we are making, and how many people we are reaching. And the growth that has happened at Gold has been amazing. And my kids are constantly participating in events to show what they're doing. They're doing STEM projects related to helping the environment and making that impact on our watershed and our waterways. And with Golda only being a few blocks from the Milwaukee River, we definitely make an impact on the coastline and everything. So just some of these pictures, we worked with Milwaukee Water Commons. We got a grant last year so we could bring our staff out on the river and share with them what they could do in their classroom to integrate water, history, water instruction, love of water, into their classrooms to make it an integrated approach. Here we won an award at the Green School Conference for a very active green team. And again, they had a booth there, a table there showing what we're doing. And we keep doing things like that where we go to conferences and things like that and show what we're doing so people are aware. We had our families here at our playground so they could see what's going on with the sustainable playground and the impact it's making. Here we met with the governor, we won another award. And met with the governor for a green school. So it's a lot of these things, and I don't know if I can move it. Here's Niagara Falls. So our trips now I've been trying to do trips that are related to understanding, the environment and how to protect it and why it's important. Here we are again, we are at a conference talking about the playground app and what we did with you, Michael, for the Bay. What did we do? You can tell us because I can't remember off the top of my head. So, but anyway, so like integrating what? I'm sorry.
The exercise app on the schoolyard, the green schoolyard, yeah.
Yeah, and then we, continued it with the field trip to the park and Humboldt Park and continue that and just their integration of STEM in what we're doing. So I think it's a great story, and I think it really gets the message out why it's important and how it engages not only our kids but our families and our community. We get a lot of partners who help out and stuff like that.
Cool. So that you're definitely answering the community impact question without question. And the item would be to figure out what the way into a particular kind of story on that. Thoughts from the community partners? Anyone want to chime in with questions or notes for Tina? Ms. Tina Gleason, who is a teacher at Golden Meyer. Thank you, Tina. Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and invite Dylan from Rapid Radicals to present your idea if you are open to that. And your 2 minutes can start now.
Thanks, Michael. And hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Waldhuter. I'm representing a local wastewater technology startup called Rapid Radicals Technology. And while I promise that this whole story is timely, it really begins in July of 2010. Milwaukee got 7 inches of rain that day in a very short period of time, and it resulted in upwards of $30 million in damage and cleanup costs. Most relevant to our story, 2 billion gallons of combined sewer overflow discharge occurred that day, and that occurs in communities where sewage and stormwater share the same infrastructure. So when that centralized treatment plant is overburdened, the system is built to overflow untreated sewage into lakes and rivers, leading to different public health and environmental concerns. And it's a problem we have in Milwaukee. It's a problem in 152 communities across the Great Lakes Basin. And it's a problem that's getting worse as climate change is leading to more frequent, severe, and less predictable storm events. And during these storms over a decade ago, an engineering professor at Marquette University, Dr. Dan Zittimer, started to hypothesize about an engineering solution to the problem. A few years later, he linked up with the founder of our company, Paige Peters, and they put their heads together to develop a wastewater treatment system that could treat high volumes of water quickly in a small footprint to advanced treatment performance. The idea being that these treatment systems could be implemented in a distributed fashion throughout the sewer shed at a sewer outfall to add capacity to the system to treat water in real time so that it's treated before it's discharged back to the environment. Fast forward to today, the technology has been scaled all the way up to a pilot that was commissioned on Monday at Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District's combined sewer lift station at 59th and State Street. And we're working closely with the district to demonstrate the viability of this technology for the treatment of overflows. It's really a collaborative effort between Marquette, MMSD, our company, and we're seeking ways to better engage the broader community around the issue. Thanks.
That's awesome. And I have a number of technical questions, which I won't ask here because then we would be bogged down ad infinitum. But maybe just a note to Jeremy, because I won't be able to pivot as fast as he may be able to. You said just on Monday, you started the pilot at 59th and State. Maybe just talk a little bit more about what that means, what's the scale of your scale?
Yeah, so the master's research started in a Petri dish. I was scaled up to benchtop and then to basically a 10 gallon per minute pilot system at South Shore Wastewater Reclamation Facility. And that was Paige's PhD research. So she got her PhD recently from Marquette University. We got $1 million in funding from the National Science Foundation last year to scale the technology up further to a 100 gallon per minute system. It's in a 45-foot shipping container. It's bright blue. If you're driving down State Street, just west of Saz's on the south side of the street, you can't miss it. It's got our logo on it. It's pretty neat. And it's pulling from the sewer, treating water. We're collecting influent and effluent data to demonstrate what sort of treatment outcomes we can meet.
Very cool. I want to see if Jeremy, if you want to ask any follow-ups, or if maybe I can just connect you with Dylan in the short term. Dylan, I would love to do a deeper dive on this at the right time, but as far as a news item, maybe that's something that Jeremy would be interested in. Jeremy, you have thoughts?
Yeah, we can take this offline of this call.
Yeah, I'll just note on the timely piece, we are soon to be announcing an exclusive licensing agreement with Marquette. So we'll be the sole commercializing entity for the technology, and we'll be doing some press release around that. And then we'll be doing a ribbon cutting kind of at the pilot system to introduce the community to some of the work that we're doing. I can talk with you offline. Yeah.
Cool. Thoughts from the community on Rapid Radicals treatment technology? Thoughts or questions from anyone?
I'm curious about prospects. So this is a kind of a Milwaukee homegrown technology, and the prospects of it happening locally sound optimistic. And then I'm curious about how this could leave Milwaukee or could expand out of Milwaukee to other places.
Yeah, good question. So Milwaukee's actually done quite a good job at doing things to resolve the issue. They haven't solved it. They do have a public goal to totally eliminate sewer overflows. And this is a piece of that puzzle, but they have the deep tunnel. The sewer overflows have decreased pretty significantly since the implementation of that system. We've started to talk to a number of different communities within the Great Lakes Basin, notably Detroit, Cincinnati, Akron, some of these other communities in the basin that have a similar issue, and there's some promise to do some trialing with those communities as well. We're also already overseas. We're doing a trial with one of the water companies in the UK in 2024 because of the prominence of the issue there and some new regulatory push to solve the problem. Their infrastructure is even older than ours, so it's a huge issue over there as well.
Congrats on all that. That sounds amazing.
Thank you so much.
Cool. We have a few seconds left on community time for this. If anyone else wants to ask a question. And I see Flossie in the chat says no question, but looks like amazing work. So kudos from Flossie.
Thanks for the time.
Cool. Hearing none, we'll pivot to Ryan, who wants to share a little bit about the Watermarks initiative. Ryan, you can have your time. And good to see you, Ryan.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted here. And I don't, am I able to share a screen? Okay, I'll just try to be brief. I had just wanted to kind of, I know that there's several people on the call who are either involved or who are already aware of Watermarks, but just wanted to give people a brief introduction. This is a program in which we are, I'm going to share the screen here just to show a couple of, let's see, are people able to see the photo? Good. Yeah, so this is a citywide project in which we are developing programming surrounding these. So this is an example of a water marker that's being constructed. The focus of most of this programming is to build awareness of Milwaukee's water issues, but especially with a special focus on green infrastructure. So this is an example at Green Tech Station, which one of our first installed letters. What these markers will do, or are now equipped to do, you can't see it exactly in this photo, but all along the pole there are solar panels that power the pole, and if there is a storm event, these will pulse, letting people know that it's a time to conserve water. So the water markers are kind of the stakes in the ground, the sort of anchors of the program, but they are also the sites of programming in which people can come together and learn about water and water issues through art projects. So I'll just actually pull up a slightly different photo here. So this is an example here. So it's really about bringing artists, scientists, and community members to engage about neighborhood water issues, but also to understand how these issues are connected on the city scale. Some examples of the programming, it usually starts with a walk around a neighborhood. These are led by an artist and a scientist together and community members, and the idea is to really spark dialogues around this. This then gets followed up by a neighborhood workshop in which we go into these issues in more depth, and ideally the neighborhood will then choose, or at least start to choose, a letter that will somehow represent their neighborhood and become the next marker. And I'm going to see if I can just quickly bring up the website. I had the website open, but let's see. Now
Put that in the chat, Ryan.
I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, rather than hunting.
Cool.
So I will. Oh, you already put it in the chat?
I just put it in the chat. Yeah, and so
excellent. Okay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to provide full disclosure. I'm involved in this project, so I've been doing community interviews that get shared through the Wi-Fi at these markers. And it seems to me that potentially this could be another avenue to connect some of the storytelling we can do through this project with Watermark's audiences. I think there might be an overlap there. And I'm also glad you provided this overview for Sydney, because that's something that we're going to be chatting about later this week, and thinking about how can we use art to visualize how Watermarks all hangs together, because it's as is illustrated, it's kind of complicated to talk about this project. It's very large and diverse. So thank you for mentioning that. Also, yeah, and Tracy's mentioning that the bottle cap mural and that Ryan was sharing was done by Artworks a few years ago. And it looks awesome. That's actually recycled plastic. Those are plastic bottle caps that then were fashioned into this art piece, not only putting the letters of Green Tech Station, but showing the Milwaukee River flowing from Lincoln Creek into the Milwaukee River into Lake Michigan. So it's kind of an interesting intersection of things that sometimes is a little asymmetric to evolve, but has a lot of power with that community impact piece. So, notes from the community or questions for Ryan on Watermarks?
Quick one. How many water markers are going in the next year?
Good question. And it's, I believe the last I checked, it was that we were expecting by the end of this year that there'll be 8 to 9 up. It's been a bit of a moving target. It took a while to get all the legal clearances and all the maintenance stuff worked out, as some of you know. But we now have three. There's a Costa Middle School, Green Tech Station, and then also an Enye in near Pulaski Park on the south side. We've got others coming in the Harbor District, Lindsay Heights, Riverworks, Harambe, and Melvina Park's coming online. So I believe that's coming around 8 or 9 that will be. But and the vision, of course, is to have this be over time to be all across the city.
I have a note that someone from Harbor District joined us. Is there anything that you would like to share? I know we saw some awesome things from Harbor District earlier this year. Harbor District, you'd like to have some time.
Hey, thanks. So Tia Torhorst, Harbor District. I'm actually here. There are probably a few of you on the call, maybe Nancy in particular, if she didn't jump already, but I'm kind of here to pitch the Milwaukee Area of Concern Community Advisory Committee. So we have a really great group of individuals who bring their community lens to ensure that this project really remains focused on ensuring that the benefits of the area of concern end up resulting in a community benefit to us. And I think all of them would be really incredible public interest and personal interest stories on why they got involved, how they're involved, and their water story as individuals.
Cool. So sort of a constellation of features or profiles is kind of what you're imagining that would show that there's different voices, different perspectives involved guiding the WRP and AOC projects forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really, the Milwaukee Area of Concern is really a national model for this work. We're being highlighted by the EPA across the country as a new way to ensure that community voice is at the table. And it's really as a result of both interest from the DNR and the Fund for Lake Michigan, but really the stakeholder group of individuals at the table to ensure that power is really shared with the community.
Is there a venue or a time that's an opportune moment to talk to folks all in one place at one time? Or what's your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, they do meetings on a regular basis and they hold community events. But I think quite honestly, they're all working professionals too. So this is not, purposefully, they're not, there is a mix of people who are involved from environmental organizations, but also really people who care about advancing this in our community. So I would recommend just kind of respecting their personal time periods and I can connect you to them if that's of interest. But I think taking it as a one-by-one is probably, while time consuming, the best approach.
Thoughts from those on the Zoom about the Area of Concern Community Advisory Committee? Cool. Thank you, Tia.
Thanks, guys. Good luck with all your work.
I think we're at a time when we can open up the floor to anyone who would like to pitch any ideas. Eric is raising his hand. Eric, you have 2 minutes.
All right, everyone. I'm going to try to show our water-centric city initiative. We created this website a couple of years ago to try to be a showcase of all the ways Milwaukee is managing its water in a sustainable and resilient way. There are 7 principles, and if you click on these, it gets into all the things we know about, the ways that UWM is doing research on water and how we're trying to apply that in policy. There's a section on all the great work Water Commons and other people are doing to try to raise the profile of water in our education system and through art. There's the fishable and swimmable, which is the Clean Water Act goals. There's all the work on green infrastructure. It's the work the Waterworks is doing to deliver a sustainable and healthy water supply. There's water leadership, meaning Mayor Johnson's involvement in the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative and the work to get the federal partners to recognize the importance of the Great Lakes. And then lastly, the water technology piece, which Dylan touched on with Rapid Radicals, but also all the great work the Water Council is doing. So I just offer that this could be an organizing principle for these water stories, that there's a bigger vision, but then you can drill down on all these different aspects of water. Because if you ask different people, what does water mean to you? It's all sorts of different ways that water affects us. And I think Milwaukee is really a leader in how we think about water. So anyway, excited to be on the call and just offer that as an option for thinking about all the work that's going on.
Very cool. Thank you, Eric. And I may not have touched on it a huge amount in the intro, but having some kind of way to synthesize all these stories at the end of the year's time into one sort of body of work that has this sort of enduring, like if it's a booklet or a book or a PDF or what that looks like may evolve, but maybe these principles provide some lens into how to divide up the diversity of stories in addition to other lenses. So I appreciate that note. Other questions or comments from partners on the Water-Centric City Initiative? I know we're running up on a time for a lot of people, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much for participating. I'll open it up if there's anyone else who wants to offer ideas, to raise your hand in Zoom, and we will provide space and time. Cool. Now, I'm not seeing any. So if we want to just pivot to kind of an open discussion on any of the ideas that have emerged or cross connections, questions, we've got about 10 minutes until 4:30. And then we'll also have the poll. Maybe we can do the poll first and have people chime in so that people have to leave. Justin has been taking notes and has put these into the poll that should be popping up on your screen. Let me see. Oh, are people able to see the question? Are you able to vote on things?
Yes.
Okay, I see people. Okay, it looks a little different from me.
And just to introduce the poll is just kind of like a straw poll, just to get a gauge of what folks are interested in based on the pitches discussion today. So this is just helpful to hear initial feedback on what we're talking about today.
And I think it lets you vote for any or none or all of them. Is that correct, Justin?
Yep, correct. And yeah, I take it from the perspective of you as an individual that may be interested in learning more about any of the stories that were shared, and or organization. It's just we're developing a resource and just want to better feel out, if who would be interested in what part of the resource.
Let's see if I can see that. It was on my screen and now, oh, here it comes. Here. Cool. Oh, there's a timer on the poll. Oh no, this timer is time elapsed. Okay, got it. So Looks like 8 people are interested, have expressed interest in the artworks collaboration, and 8 in Ann Kohler's water safety education.
We'll just give it, yeah, just 5 more seconds.
Oh,
There's just a
okay,
couple more
sorry.
people responding. And then we can hit submit so we can all see what the results
Don
are.
has a question. Do you want to ask your question before we close the poll, Don? We can't hear you though. There you go.
Right, yeah, yes, I don't see the fish passage on the list, the Clutch Park Dam fish passage.
Yep, apologize for that. We added a couple of new ones on the list, and so I merged that one with the Water Restoration Partnership. Based on the presentation that was given today, they wanted to kind of compile that into area of concern and Water Restoration Partnership.
So a vote for Clutch is a vote for Waterway Restoration Partnership, or not a vote, but a.
And we can share the results. So I would interpret a lot of folks are interested in the rapid radicals opportunity. It sounds like emerging technologies and how that might expand out of Milwaukee. Interest in the arts components. It's good. It's across the board. There's interest in all of the things, and a couple of extra emphasis on this few of the topics.
Cool. Tracy has her hand up. I also want to recognize the question from Tia in the chat. So Tracy, and then we'll go to Tia's question.
I just wanted to note too that Watermarks is also one of Artworks' ongoing partners and could potentially have involvement in our storm drain thing too. So for the record, we could put a little asterisk by those two and possibly putting them in a story together or including mentioning the other.
Cool. And from my perspective, I like if we can integrate things because it helps to show the connectivity rather than a lot of one-off kind of pieces. So that's my perspective on what I think this opportunity is well suited to. And the question from T in the chat, if we want to share stories as they evolve in the coming months, what is the best way? One way is to email me directly if it's the kind of thing where you want to have a conversation about at a deeper level, as I know some of you have indicated like you would be interested in the coming weeks. Another is to stay tuned for the next roundtable sessions, which we put, let me share my screen again, and I'll put that slide back up on the board. One moment, please. Share screen. Which is September 14th, and then January 11th, and then March 14th as sort of save the dates for another opportunity if stuff that's changed, or if there's stuff coming up, or if there's a new level or new dimension, or those are the other opportunities to have an entity or an activity kind of like this. I imagine it will be a little bit of a softer activity because folks will have come, some will have come to this one, and it may be a different group of people who come to the next. But if there's an evolution in any of these story ideas, I would invite you to the one of the subsequent roundtables or to directly correspond with me. Those are both good ways to suggest these ideas. Again, to recap the expected outputs from this activity, it's at least 12 feature stories over the next year. I've kind of conceptually fragmented that into the idea of roughly once a month, but it doesn't mean that that's what it ends up having to be. So the timing could also affect the best way to follow up on different stories as well. Thank you for that question. Are there other questions or notes? We're closing in on 4:30, which is a great bracket time, and happy to have some extra time after 4:30 for those who might want to stay and have a conversation longer, but also want to respect everyone's time. Next steps will be follow-up. We'll digest the notes from this meeting. I'll send out a follow-up to everyone who was invited and those who've expressed interest, just summarizing the story ideas and the project as a whole. We'll also be meeting with Sydney in the days to come to plot out kind of how to integrate some of these ideas into a draft storyboard that, depending on where it lands by September, could either be ready to share or ready for review, or some blend of that, depending on how that goes. And that'll be a next step. And then we'll be in conversation with Urban Milwaukee about the placement of the initial round for the coming quarter of the year in terms of what to look for. And then if you're not already subscribed to the Reflows Milwaukee Water Stories e-newsletter, that comes out roughly once a month. And I will put links to whatever we publish in that as a way to kind of keep tabs on that work as it evolves. And I think also to advertise the coming roundtables, which I think would be a great opportunity for feedback on some of the illustrated work, and not only feedback on what will have been done by then, but looking ahead to, okay, this is what we've done with this first quarter. How might we use this kind of energy and approach and illustration to illustrate some of these other stories heading into 2024? So I kind of have a little bit of a game plan for the next 2-3 months, but I think I would love for anyone interested to come back and guide this process September, October, and then heading into next year. And I know there's been a lot of individual messages in the chat to me. I apologize, I haven't been able to get to those, but we'll also digest that, and I'll make sure to follow up individually with folks in the days to come as well.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.